there is this insane juxtaposition that we have with Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. There were fans calling into Cleveland sports radio stations that the first thing off the top was comparing the passer rating of Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. We now get to live out and see this, that Baker Mayfield gets this new deal in the offseason. He looked really strong last year, led them to a playoff win, and he starts off the year going 24 of 30 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns in a week, as I pointed out at the beginning, where it felt like no quarterbacks exceeded 200 passing yards. He was one of the best performers of this week against a hapless
The Commanders will make
team.
a quarterback look good. They'll make a mediocre guy look like an all-pro.
Baker Mayfield continues to be a great example of why we should never give up on a quarterback who's doing good things, but hasn't fully gotten there yet, and try and reach and grab for the superstar, which is what they did with Deshaun Watson. And it came out today that there's another allegation against Deshaun Watson. It's disturbing, the civil suit that is being filed against him, the allegations. I don't know how, after the performance that he had in this game, where he had 45 passing attempts against the Cowboys and they lost 37-20 and he had 2 picks. I don't know how, one, and this is obvious, how you can look to the future and think that Deshaun Watson should finish out his contract. 2, start Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
There's no difference between the two of them. At least Jameis Winston's going to take shots.
Yeah. No. Here's the difference. Jameis Winston still has an arm. Jameis Winston has shown that he can throw a football.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston has shown growth in the NFL instead of a terrible plateau and then sharp regression that Deshaun Watson has shown. He looks, he doesn't look like a quarterback. It's crazy to see a guy that was
he looks
that
like
talented.
Tyler Van Dyke. Like he's playing like that.
I would rather have Tyler Van Dyke personally.
Sure.
Yeah, I know you would also. But Winston should be the starter from here on out. If the Browns had the balls to mortgage their future on them, they should have the balls to walk in and say, that was a mistake. We're done with this. We're going to eat the money. We're going to do what smart teams do when they know it's not working out, and they're just going to we're going to eat the money, because the Browns have a great team. They have a fantastic offensive line. The defense is filled with studs, good wide receivers, good running backs, and the only position that's holding them back is the quarterback right now. And that could be fixed with the backup that they signed. So keeping Deshaun Watson as the starter is mind-boggling to me. And Mayfield, you know what? Talk about opposites. Mayfield starts off super cold. Watson starts out hot. One team, and then Mayfield starts going through troubles. Ships to Carolina, Siberia, basically. Then gets shipped to LA for a cup of coffee. Does good things, and then lands in Tampa Bay, who was just patient with the guy. Had a good offense and offensive line, and I'd love to talk about this Tampa Bay Bucks offensive line. They're stellar, and they bullied the Commanders on the interior all day. But Mayfield has evolved. He has shown what he can be. He's shown that he can be a competent guy that delivers the ball accurately. I'm in on Baker Mayfield all over again.
Here's the thing with Baker Mayfield, too, is such a side point. For any team that's in the situation where the quarterback that you drafted or brought in is not panning out, it now like really creates the false reality that you think that there's someone out there, that there's something out there that you can go get. There's nobody like that right now. But to talk about Deshaun's situation, you hit the nail on the head. This is not like they have Dorian Thompson-Robinson last year, where he was just not really built to be a starter, but could be a quality gadget player / backup. This isn't like Joe Flacco, who this team was better with Joe Flacco running the offense.
He was the best quarterback they've had there in 5 years.
Not only is Deshaun Watson playing bad, but he's playing soft. It's one thing to be check down Charlie, make the really casual, light decision instead of being willing to stress a defense and take difficult throws and take these difficult shots to trying to fit into tight windows. It's one thing to do that. But to be bad at both things, where you're turning the ball over and you're just trying to play as safe and as conservative as possible, there is no way that this thing can continue. Jameis Winston has been a guy who is, when he's been called upon, has performed well, and he's been on really awful teams. Awful teams.
Those Bucs teams were bad.
and the Saints team that he was on.
Yes, this is the best team that he's been on.
Talk about a guy who's a former first overall pick who has traits that has not had a good opportunity. Don't let the Baker Mayfield situation hurt you any longer. You have an opportunity in a way to redeem yourself. Give a former first rounder the chance. See what happens. There's nothing better that's going to happen with Deshaun Watson.
It almost feels like destiny at this point for it all to work out for Jameis like it worked out for Mayfield. Like when you lay out the situation like you just did, okay, we couldn't handle having this first round pick in Mayfield. Maybe we learned from it. We built a better team when we were rebuilding, and now we have another guy who's competent that should be starting. God, I just want that to happen. I think if the Browns are good, it makes football better. When the Browns are a basement team, then the AFC North just stomp on them. All of the AFC gets shaken up. The Browns are a competitive team. They can take down top AFC teams if they have a guy that can pass the ball and keep them in games. It doesn't help that Nick Chubb is out, but Nick Chubb couldn't do it all on his own. If Nick Chubb was playing yesterday, it wouldn't have been different. The Cowboys defense was swarming. They were crushing Watson. Watson just made all the wrong decisions. And it almost feels like excessive what I saw online about Watson. But every time I watched him playing quarterback, they're right. The crazies on Twitter were right yesterday. He shouldn't be playing. He shouldn't be leading this team.
It's one of the few situations too where he gets benched and his career starts to kind of crumble, and it's like, oh man, that's tough. That's really brutal. No, this guy's a horrible person. Screw this guy. Everybody ganging up on Deshaun Watson is completely justified. F this guy. F him. Get him off the field. Put Jameis Winston in. I'm not saying that Jameis Winston wins you a Super Bowl, but the craziest part you're saying with it's better when the Browns are good. They have a really good defense. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they are letting themselves sink because of this bum, this horrible, horrible person who is just an utter bum, dog-esque quarterback who can't play and is a coward. So take him off the field. He shouldn't be on the field. You had talked about the Buccaneers offensive line. I heard you talking about it earlier. I heard you mention Wirfs and Cody Mock, but Graham Barnes awesome too.
But Brian Baldinger had a great breakdown on the Bucs offensive line. I watch all the stuff he does on the offensive line, and it is so impressive how the Buccaneers cultivate offensive line talent. They're never getting beat consistently. You never see Baker Mayfield constantly under duress, and Washington on the interior, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They drafted Jerjon Newton.
Jerjon Newton.
And they get Fedarian Mathis last year, second overall pick. It's probably the deepest defensive tackle room in the NFL. They got worked. They got worked all day by a better scheme and a better offensive line. Why does Baker Mayfield got so much time? Because they're sliding right. They're moving. They're blocking. The Tampa's could be a force this year. It's week 1. I know it is, and it's probably overreactionary because I didn't see Baker Mayfield throw a Baker Mayfield pick, but they could definitely be a force in the NFC this year.
I think they're going to win the NFC South.
I agree.